Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Lee!
Well, it's been a great week in politics for the rich and powerful. Freed from the shackles of red tape with the distant promise of knighthood in their future, Australia's elite will walk out of their glass-walled offices into their weekends. Tomorrow, the waves of Sydney Harbour will seem to wink at them from aboard their yachts. The caviar will seem to glisten from aboard its smoked salmon brioche, and their mistresses' visiting hours will seem to sync up perfectly with their wives' tennis lessons, as if the very stars aligned. After Tony Abbott managed to convince the working class that the Liberal Party was on their side at the election, this week he's proved himself to be less blue-collar and more blue-tie, and perhaps even more blue-blooded than even his closest colleagues would have believed. For Australia's serfs and peasants, though, it might seem to them as though the rain has well and truly set in for another 4 years, as if the protections they receive under law have been swept out from their very feet. My spirit animal, Penny Wong, described the amendments. She described the amendments to the sections of the Racial Discrimination Act as a deeply personal debate for people who have experienced racism, a debate that brings back hurtful memories about being marginalised. Now, I myself haven't copped that much racism in my life, mostly because people don't know what type of racist they should be. There was one time, though, my friend's brother described me as a scramblo. Which is a mixture of yellow and white, which I didn't find so offensive because, to be fair, I am delicious on toast with a piece of bacon and avocado. But since he was the only type of persecuted white person that exists, a ranger, I decided I would cut him some slack. Someone was racist to me on a bus once, and I know it's not an isolated incident. If you do a YouTube search for racist bus Australia, you get 12,800 results, which is heaps. But if there's anything we all know about racists is that they love a good old rant on public transport. A bus to a racist is like a Zumba class for your mum. A place where they feel free to express themselves, but if you saw it, it's very likely to make you feel uncomfortable. The thing is, though, for your everyday public transport variety racists, these amendments aren't going to make much of a difference to them. No one is going to stop them yelling things on a bus or writing hateful things on Twitter. They don't think about when they're abusing a taxi driver or ranting at a local pub or calling a football player an ape. Oh, I wonder if my rights are going to be protected under 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. No, this legislation wasn't ever going to drive racists underground into some sort of awful speakeasy. Plus, we already have them. They're called leagues clubs. This legislation doesn't provide protection for racists, it provides protection for rich racists who already have a public platform, particularly litigious ones who don't like being taken to court, whose name I'm not even really allowed to say as an employee of the ABC, because I'll probably have to apologise later. He's like Voldemort.
This is the CBAA, you can say whatever you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does everyone else want to say it? Just in case? Yeah, good. But I do see where the government was coming from, like trying to find a present for your friend that already has everything. This week, Tony Abbott was faced with having to get a present for his political supporters that already have everything. Control of most of the country's media. No, they bought that for themselves last year. How about unrestricted access to the land's natural resources? No, they've got heaps of that already. Oh, what about an aristocratic title? Nice one. That'll go well with the protection from the law so they can say hateful things in the media. Perfect. I think they mentioned they wanted that in 2011 after a particular court case. But I do always think that it's useful to look at the worst case scenario for both sides of the argument. Without the proposed changes, freedom of speech could be strangled, with people being constantly dragged before the courts. Though if you look at the claims made under the Act last year, only 3% of them went to court. The rest of the cases were resolved through reconciliation. And in one instance I read today, a cartoonist who published something that was found to have vilified Aboriginal people, his punishment was he had to go and visit Aboriginal communities, hear their stories, and teach the children to draw cartoons. What a terrible punishment, you know. But it ended up being good because the cartoonist learnt something about another culture and the kids can do a fucking killer caricature of the Chinese now. But if it does pass in its current form, proven emotional and psychological harm will just be dismissed as hurt feelings. And in conjunction with defamation laws, that means it's okay to say something racist, but weirdly not okay to call that person a racist. And when that guy on my bus yelled at me and called me a killer because apparently I did something bad in Nam to him, I mean, I did. He made me feel powerless and he made me feel small. And I think this legislation lets a powerful person make another person feel small. And as a reasonable member of the community, albeit a pretty Chinese one, I stand against it.